Cheers, Sam Dowler.
Cheers, Laurence.
Journalist and broadcaster. Mm-hmm. We both lost a loved one during the pandemic, didn't we?
We did.
Tell me your story.
Well, my dad had cancer for 7 years, myeloma. And when the pandemic hit, it was actually one of the two cancers that Boris mentioned in his very first speech about it, and which is odd because I'd never even really heard of myeloma. So my dad was always like, ding, ding, oh my God, I can't leave the house. And, you know, he had a bit of OCD anyway, so this was like playing into his paranoia. So, yeah, that was it. He didn't leave the house for 2 years, other than we drove him down to UCLH for treatment. But yeah, we just doing no exercise and all of that just obviously didn't help matters. And yeah, and then it was a year ago last December. So where were we in the pandemic? It was just before Christmas was cancelled, I believe, wasn't it? And
or not if you were in Downing Street.
Yeah, and I was living with my mum, and my dad was downstairs in a hospital bed, and my sister was over from Australia. My other sister lives in the same town, so she was round, like, because he was spending his last days in bed. And then I came home from something in London, and the next morning I woke up and couldn't taste or smell anything, and it was bad. Like my brain fog. It was so. I don't know if you had COVID or whether.
Twice.
Yes, well done. But the no taste and smell was just like really debilitating. So I did a test, and I was my partner was with me as well, and he works in care, so he like scarpered. Thanks. No.
Thanks, love. Bye.
But yeah, so that was on the Thursday, and on the Saturday or the Sunday, I think it was, my mum came upstairs. I said straight away. My mum came upstairs and said that he was going. So I went downstairs in full PPE because I didn't want to give it to him. I didn't want to give it to my mum. She's 70. She was 70 at the time, and my Australian sister was going back to Australia, and they had some of the most stringent
rules ever. Those crazy how quickly they turned into their descendants of prison guards.
Laurence. So they so she obviously didn't want to get it either. So I went downstairs and I said goodbye and gave him a hug, and went back upstairs, and then he died that night, and then I stayed in my room for another 5 days.
That must have been very hard mentally to deal with.
It was the worst time of my life.
I'm sorry.
With no one to hug or
console you or to share your grief with. That's what infuriated me, because my mum passed away in April of 2020, and then it was just horrendous. But we obviously, our family, as you may not have noticed, didn't really care about the COVID type deal as a general. Actually, I think one of them did. I can't remember who. But we went, and my mum was on her way, and the doctor turned up in full PPE and all the masks and everything, and was sort of sobbing all over each other. And I think my sister went, "What do we do?" And he went, "It's your mum. She's going. Hug her, hold her." So we all did. So it was a sort of slightly different one. But then when I found out that they were partying in Downing Street not long after, my fury was huge. Let's go on to Pride. What do you think of Pride?
So
why do you think I don't like Pride?
So the reason I think it's extremely important. So Euro Pride is obviously the pinnacle of Europe's Pride. We all have Pride. You have Hull Pride, Hertfordshire Pride. They're everywhere. And Euro Pride had to be cancelled last year because of right-wing politicians. This was in Serbia, and you know, Roman Catholics who was standing in the street saying it was disgusting. Anyway, so therefore they weren't even allowed to march the streets. So that is wrong, obviously, because people should be allowed to express themselves.
That's discrimination against someone based on their sexual orientation, which is utterly wrong.
Exactly. So the next one is World Pride, which is in Sydney World Pride, which I'm going to, and it is not only is it obviously it's in Australia, and we just talked about how how bad that was to get into Australia. So at least it's opened up, and we can go there, and it's like it's a focus when all around the world LGBTQ rights are being rolled back, not rolled forward. That's why it's important.
When you say LGBTQ, this is one of my problems with Pride.
Plus.
2 pluses, actually, for Two-Spirit, isn't it?
I just use the one.
Okay, you can use the plus if you like. To me, the way that I look at people is I just take them as I find them. I don't, I mean, obviously you notice things like skin colour and, if someone is massively camp or something, you can...
How dare you?
Darling. And, but I take people as I find them. So I find the lumping of people into groups. Also, I've got a few gay friends. I don't have any lesbian friends. I don't know why. But my gay friends tell me, anecdotally, and you can correct me if this is wrong, that gays and lesbians don't necessarily get on that well. So why would you lump, so the L is first, why would you lump individuals into an enormous group?
Okay, first of all, that's nonsense. I don't know what gay friends you have, but I have many lesbian friends, and I have for many years, and I love them dearly, and I have many.
But you get my point. I'm not trying to say they don't get on. I'm just trying to say they're groups of individuals.
It's a way, lumping them together is a way of protection. That's why there's a T.
Or exploitation.
That is why there's a T in there as well for transgender, because they are the most vulnerable group that need the most help, and at a time when they are being particularly vilified in America, for example, all over the place, and to the point where the scaremongering leads to crazy people murdering them, which happens all the time in America, not over here so much.
Well, you've got to look at the stats on that one, Sam.
We're together as lumped together, as you say. I mean, of course, there are splinter groups or people like the LGBT Alliance, for example, who say that trans isn't about sexuality, it's about gender, But trans people were the people that started like the Stonewall riots, for example. We stick together because there is safety in numbers, and you can't deny that that somebody walking down the street who might be super camp, etc., as you just said, will be vulnerable to people going like, all right, perf, like going to beat them up. But, if simply by being with other people, you are safer. And that is the crux of it.
Why an LGBTQ History Month, a Pride Month? Why not that I am advocating for any. I don't want any months. I just want to take people as I find them. So maybe that just makes me different.
Yeah.
So have you suffered a lot of homophobic abuse in your life?
Not a lot, but some.
Yeah, but I've suffered abuse as well. For just being a posh, lanky.
Yeah, I get that. But that doesn't result in you getting beaten up, raped, or killed.
Well, it does actually, and it has done in clubs. I almost got beaten up. I haven't had a fight since I was.
Did they recognise you?
Well, the other weekend I went to a party at an American person's house. And then afterwards, one of the people I was with said, "Can we go for a drink?" Yeah. And then someone came up to me, and I was going to get into a fight with them because of what I think. Do you know what I mean?
Because you're a broadcaster and you say controversial things, and obviously.
Well, I just say what I think. It doesn't make it controversial.
But for some people, it rubs people up the wrong way.
Yeah, but do I deserve to be punched in the face for it?
No, of course not. I don't think anybody should get any sort of violence at all. But obviously, some people would want to come up to you and question you about things. That
so I'm saying, but we all suffer from discrimination, right? Yeah. I happen to suffer from philosophical discrimination. So why can't it be LGBTQ plus P?
Well. For example,
can I come and join?
Going to go back into, you can be an ally, of course, but to go back into you go back into a month, right? You go back into like a month, or like Black History Month, for example.
Don't like that month either.
Yeah, of course you don't, because LGBTQ people and Black people over years have been persecuted. So therefore, it is important to look back on what has happened and how we can make sure it doesn't happen again, and to educate everybody.
Do you think that's what's happening at the moment? I think what's happening is there's more, ever since this movement started, which
movement?
This Pride movement and this
50 years
ever growing. Yeah, but I was pretty chilled with the rainbow flag. I could deal with it. I thought, good for you. You were in the middle of a time when there was real, proper, systemic oppression to gay and lesbian people. I get it. Let's start a movement. Now it feels like certainly we're not doing a lot of favours for the trans community, aren't doing themselves a lot of favours with things like drag queen story hours and some of the stuff that you see at these pride marches, that get circulated around the
internet.
To talk
about drag queen story hours, it's not about them doing themselves no favours. This is something that the community wants. They're not imposing.
Which community?
All communities. If they want to,
I've not met a single
drag
parent
queen,
who wants to
you
go.
haven't met them. It's the same as like you say with the LGBTQ stuff. It doesn't really concern you because you're not. So it's therefore, if other people want to march or have their rights, it doesn't.
I'm happy for them to march. It
doesn't affect you though, does it? A common ground would be like, I do think, as I said, the pendulum has to swing both ways in order to come together. And like, we're in a time of cultural change. We're in a time of great change throughout the world.